This is why we have the corporate wellness program that we have, right here. 69% of Americans are overweight. And this information is outdated. This is 2012. 69%. But you know what the scary part about that is? It's 32% of our children. 32% of our children. 20 years ago, it was 12% of kids. Okay, so just in 20 years, our children population has tripled on the overweight side. You know, one of the things, I traveled around the country on the road to revolution, and I was telling somebody a stat. I was telling multiple people stats with regard to one particular issue. The CDC just came out with some very troubling results. It's very troubling data with regard to the trends in America. Did you know that the average child in the U.S. spends 4 minutes a day outside? 4 minutes. Now here's the best part. That's the children. You're not a child anymore. That means we're spending less than they do. All right, so let's talk about obesity. This is a BMI over 30. Forget the overweight for a second. You know, 2 years ago, Mexico overtook the United States as being the heaviest population on earth. You know, and the U.S. always wants to be first, so guess what? We took it back. Not only did we take it back, that's 34% of our population. You want to know why we have corporate wellness? This is it. This is the main reason. Because this plays a huge factor in the corporation's bottom line. When you talk to companies and you say, what is your #1 cost factor beyond the employee, it is healthcare. And see, we had this little act that came out a few years ago. You can call it the Affordable Care Act, you can call it Obamacare, you can call it whatever you want. You can be for it or you can be against it. But I can tell you this, it's not going away. And there's some very interesting aspects of it, because two things about it that are very clear. First, it's the very first piece of federal legislation that actually encourages doctors to be proactive rather than reactive. In fact, it actually has a code in it that they can actually have nutritional counseling sessions with their patients if they're primary care physicians. The other thing that it did is it actually rewards companies through tax incentives for actually implementing corporate wellness programs. It wants them to do that. Why is that? Because you can't put 42 million new people into a system that has 5% less doctors than it had 5 years ago without doing something to encourage people to take control of their own health. People spend more time shopping for their television than they do shopping for the doctor who's going to do their surgery. Think about it. The last time you had a surgery, what happened? You talked to somebody that said, go to this person. You went to that person. You said, okay. You had no idea what it was going to cost until the bill came in the mail, and then you had the heart attack. Think about that for a second. It's reality. So, why are we so passionate about it at ID Life? You've seen it. Why am I so passionate about this personally? Now, this one is a little bit harder, because one of the things you have to do if you're going to get on stage like this and you're going to talk about things, you know, Scott talks about, you know, I've become this expert in nutrition. I can tell you I'm not an expert in nutrition. You want to see proof? Right here's proof. I was 307 pounds. In fact, what's interesting is the only way I knew that I had actually gained the weight that I had was when I came home, my wife showed me the picture of me and Goofy. And I was bigger than Goofy. And what's interesting is it took me 10 years to get there. You see, I was a college athlete. I played college baseball. I was 8% body fat, running 8 to 10 miles a day. In 10 years, when I got here, I looked in the mirror every single day and I never saw that guy. Never once. But when I stand on stage and I talk to people about getting well and getting healthy, guess what? I'm not talking as an expert. I'm talking about somebody who's trying to learn every single day something new. I've done nothing that no one else can do in this room. It's all about what you want to do, what you want to learn. And today we're going to talk about some of those things because, you know, ultimately it's confusing. I'm not going to lie to you. You look at these ads, you look at all of these things, and you think, okay, I'm doing the right thing. I've gone to the store, I bought something that says light, or I bought something that says fat-free. Here's a test. Next time you go to a grocery store, grab a light version of your favorite salad dressing and grab the regular version, turn them around, and watch the light version have twice as much sugar in it. Now what did you do? You thought you did something good. In fact, what you're doing is consuming twice as much sugar. You heard the doctors talk about diabetes. You're going to see a lot more. So let's talk about a few things. 8 glasses of water a day. Everybody's heard this. Everybody believes this. In fact, you have some doctors that even still tout this. But in reality, here's the thing. Did you know there's no scientific basis for it? None. In fact, it comes from some nutritionist in 1945 who said, yeah, you need to drink about 2.5 liters a day. They converted that to 8 glasses and it became lore. That's what you should do. But I can tell you this, if you live in Texas this time of year and you work outside, that's not enough. Now, if you live in the Northeast, it's winter, maybe enough. But the thing is this, you have to educate yourself on what proper hydration is. Don't believe just what you see. You have to learn. This is the kind of thing that we do in our corporate wellness program. This is why we have one. Because ultimately, if you remember nothing else, remember this. We focus on changing the 6 inches between your ears to affect the 40 inches around your waist, not the other way around. Because let me give you a little bit of information about how you can lose weight. And this is coming from somebody who it took 6.5 years to figure it out. I've got 2 bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, and a law degree, and it took me 6.5 years to figure out how to lose 100 pounds. You know why? I listened to everybody. Any friends, late night television shows, pills that were supposed to be the super drug, you name it. I tried it. Other than FinFin, thank God. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing on this stage. And that's what always amazes me when I do corporate wellness implementations. You have a lot of people that are out there waiting for the next pharmaceutical to come along so they can keep doing what they're doing and get the result that they want. And we're going to go through some of that in a little bit, but this is one of my favorites. Diet soda is better than regular soda. Now here's the funny thing. You see the picture in the background with the diet soda can floating and the regular one sinking? That's actually true. Try it at home. It really works. Now, physics would tell you this. 2 cans made identically the same, filled with the same exact amount of weight. One should do the same as the other, but it doesn't. There's a lot of sugar in one. There's not much in the other. But here's the problem. Did you know that if you drink diet soda, you're 40% more likely to be overweight than if you drink regular? Here's the other thing. What happens to your body when you drink diet soda is simply this. And I say diet soda. This is a picture of what it is, but it doesn't matter. Your pancreas starts creating insulin. Insulin is supposed to help get rid of the sugar. But guess what? There's no real sugar there. So it goes to its secondary function. Stores fat. So my favorite is always this. You go through some place and you see somebody say, yeah, I'll take 2 cheeseburgers and a Diet Coke. What do you think's happening to those 2 cheeseburgers? Forget for a second where they even came from. The body's converting it to fat. Okay? This is another thing. You have to educate yourself. The one thing I hear all the time is, well, you know, I just don't like the way water tastes. And that's because everyone has taught you what sodas and other things and proper food is supposed to taste like. It's supposed to be sweet. We're supposed to enjoy it. Guess what? That's why you don't like water. Let's talk about something else. This is one that I hear all the time. Muscle weighs more than fat. That's a picture of Galileo. If you don't know what that is, he's the one that grabbed a pound of feathers and a pound of rocks and dropped them from the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and they hit the ground at the same time. Because a pound is a pound. It's just the muscle is more dense than the fat. Muscle's about the size of the fist, fat, this. But here's the interesting part. This is something that is true. A pound of muscle will burn about 7 to 10 calories a day, where a pound of fat will burn 2 to 3. So, don't you want more lean muscle on your body? That is your metabolic rate. That is what's going to start your engine. But see, a lot of people, when they tell people they want to lose weight, they say, oh, you're just going to lose fat. But if you go about it another way and you approach it from a place where I came from, which is, hey, I was looking for the answer, and I tried everything because everyone kept saying, well, just lose the weight. And when I went on a diet, I did this. My metabolism went down because my body went into shock. I was able to maintain for 90 to 100 days on this wonderful diet thing. And then what happened? I stopped the diet. I reverted back to my old habits because I hadn't affected the 6 inches between my ears, and I started to go up. The problem was this. My metabolism was still down here. Because it takes your metabolism 120 to 180 days to catch up. It does not take 120 to 180 to gain the weight that you lost. So what happens? The inevitable. Yeah, you know, I've lost that same 50 pounds 3 times. I just gained 10 of it back every single time. But in reality, you haven't, because all you did on the way down is you lost fat and muscle. On the way back up, guess what? All you did is gain fat. So ultimately, here's the thing, guys. What I'm trying to teach you is when we do corporate wellness training, this is what we do. This is what we're educating on. Do you see anything in here about a product? This isn't product training. Okay, this is educational training. Why? We're going to go through a few other things. Well, why do we do that? It's real simple. We're a health and wellness company. Get that. We are a health and wellness company who happens to make the greatest products on the planet if you want to use them. But ultimately, we're going to do this. We're going to get this world healthy, with the products or without the products, but we're going to know one thing. In the process of getting people healthy, other people are going to see what they're doing and they're going to say, how did you do it? And they say, well, there's this assessment. It's free. All you have to do is take it, you get this information. What's going to happen along the way? There's going to be a lot of people that will get introduced not only to the brand, but also to the products, and some of the products will take care of themselves. Everybody understand that? Because ultimately, I want everyone to get that. Because let's look at this one. Genetically modified organisms. Now, if I said in the room, how many of you know what those are? Everyone's going to raise their hand and say, oh yeah, everyone's heard of them. But do you really know what they are? Because here's the one thing. If I could ask anyone in the room, can you tell me what a genetically modified organism is going to do to the human body in 10 years? If any of you raise your hand, guess what? You're smarter than any scientist on the planet. Because no one knows. Now here's the scary thing. If you've heard me at Road to Revolution, you've heard me say all kinds of things about genetically modified organisms, but I'm going to tell you about something that's on this slide that I've never talked about before, and it's probably the scariest thing that's on this slide. They did a test in rats. It's in the lower left-hand column. They did a test in rats, mice actually, and they gave 4 generations genetically modified corn. And in the 4th generation, guess what? They died. Organs started to have abnormalities, and the fertility rate dropped to almost nothing. Guess what? GMOs came across in this country in 1996. 1996. We're now in the 3rd generation of humans consuming them. Now, that you could hear a pin drop. No one in here knew that, right? Because that's the kind of information that we don't know. What's interesting about this slide is 83% of Americans say, I want genetically modified organisms labeled on our food. 53% say, I would not consume them if I knew they existed. Why do they still exist in the U.S.? We're the only industrialized country in the world that allows them to exist without being labeled. But you want to know the scary part about genetically modified organisms? It's this. There are forests in Canada that have never allowed genetic modification in any form, fashion, or way. But you have this wonderful thing called air. It has a tendency to carry things distances. They're actually finding traces of the genetically modified organisms that we've been dropping on our crops in the U.S., now in Canada. It's traveling. This is what's happening. So why is that important? You know, I go to the grocery store and I see people that are buying, 6 and 7 ears of corn for $1. And I see the organic corn that's, 6 for $12. And people are always buying the genetically modified. You know how hard it is for me not to go over there and stop them and say, let me tell you what you're doing to yourself. 94% of our corn in this country is genetically modified. I used to say 100% of the soybeans was modified, and somebody corrected me. They checked, it's only 99.8%. I can't make this up. But in reality, here's the thing that you need to understand. These things, we don't know what they're doing to us. So when I go in and I educate people on a corporate wellness side of things, what we do is this. We as a company give them the information so that they can make an informed choice. So they can ask the questions that they need to ask, so they can take control over their own health. Because ultimately, even if they keep the same lifestyle that they have, if they simply make a choice from non-genetically modified from genetically modified to non-genetically modified, we've helped that person. Because it's the right thing to do. Let's talk about statin drugs. You just heard some things about statin. But did you know 1 in 4 Americans are on a statin? 1 in 4. Statistics in this room means about 100 of you on our statin drug right now. They came out in 1987. The interesting thing is this. For anybody that's waiting on the super pill, for anything that's going to cure whatever it is you're looking for, I'm going to show you something. Because 15 years after they came out, the FDA came out with some additional warnings. Because they had 15 years of research. Causes liver damage, memory loss and confusion, type 2 diabetes and muscle weakness. Actually causes type 2 diabetes. This is beyond the fact that it takes away the body's ability to produce CoQ10, which is the main nutrient for heart health. And you have to love Canadians because sometimes they just get straight to it. So Health Canada actually got it a little bit closer. What they say is this: could lead to impaired cardiac function in patients with borderline congestive heart failure. In other words, you're taking a statin to help your cholesterol because you need it for heart health. But by taking the statin, you can actually be compromising your heart health. And it only took them 15 years to figure that out. Do you understand? Am I telling anybody to stop taking their statin? No. What I'm telling you is to educate yourself.